Welcome, everyone, to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I'm your host, the Wilder historian, Dr. Lucas Wilder, and last time, Hood distinguished himself at Gaines' Mill. Now, he and the Army of Northern Virginia launched the Northern Virginia Campaign. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, join the Patreon page, and purchase something from one of my online stores. Every little bit helps. Thank you. Thus far, the 7 Days battles made Hood a standout commander in this army, now commanded by Robert E. Lee. But the battles after Gaines' Mill didn't bring Hood as much glory. The rebel army pushed George McClellan's Army of the Potomac back down the peninsula, preventing the capture of Richmond, Virginia. With the threat gone, Hood and his brigade were brought back to Richmond, and passes were given freely to men and officers to enter the city to enjoy themselves. Richmond residents saw Hood on numerous occasions attending plays and enjoying the company of ladies. Robert E. Lee shook up the organization of his newly acquired army, either transferring or reassigning generals he viewed as incompetent or unable to do what was ordered. On that list of men Lee wanted to get rid of was William Whiting, Hood's division commander. Whiting was a highly educated and academically excellent student. He graduated at the top of his class at West Point and performed engineering jobs in the pre-war years, overseeing installations in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. As forts and arsenals throughout the South were taken over by state troops, Whiting did nothing to stop it and eventually joined the Confederate ranks. He had an up-and-down career in the rebel army up to the 7 Days battles, and Lee felt Whiting didn't fit in with his army. Since Whiting was on sick leave, Lee named Hood as commander of Whiting's division. Whiting would never be restored to command of that division. It effectively became Hood's division. The division only contained Hood's brigade and the brigade of Evander Law. Law and Hood had been in the division together and were good friends, and that team would become formidable. With McClellan no longer a threat, Lee turned his attention to a Union force in Northern Virginia dubbed the Army of Virginia, commanded by a general from the Western Theater named John Pope. Lee initially dispatched Thomas Stonewall Jackson to keep an eye on Pope, but soon had basically his entire force on the move, with Hood's small division being assigned to James Longstreet's wing of the army. The Army of Northern Virginia forced Pope back from the Rapidan and Rappahannock rivers, with Jackson making it into the Union Army's rear. Longstreet's half of the army advanced later. Jackson set up a defensive line along an unfinished railroad cut and awaited the arrival of Longstreet. Hood's men led Longstreet's wing and used a cattle trail to try and get around the Union resistance at Thoroughfare Gap. Once through that obstacle, Hood again led the way to Jackson's right flank, arriving late in the day but still able to hit the Federals attacking Jackson's line. The next day, as Union attention continued to be directed toward Jackson, Longstreet let loose his wing upon the Federals with Hood's men in the front ranks. The battle for Hood was chaotic. It was his first time leading the whole division into battle. The Texas Brigade was on the right, and Law's brigade was on the left. The Texas regiments, particularly the 1st, got disconnected from the rest of the brigade, but the division finally came together for a concerted effort to push the Federals off the field. Among the battlefield honors bestowed upon Hood and his command, they captured a multitude of wagons, which the division sorely needed. However, Nathan Shanks Evans, a man that outranked Hood, ordered the wagons distributed to his troops, but Hood refused. This landed Hood under arrest. While Hood languished at Culpeper Courthouse awaiting a court-martial, Lee, Longstreet, and Jackson planned their next moves, following the victory at Second Manassas. There weren't many options available to Lee. If he moved south, he would be giving up ground he had worked so hard to take back from the Yankees. If he moved west to the Shenandoah Valley, it would open up the way to Richmond for the enemy. If he moved east, he ran into the defenses of Washington, D.C. None of those options made much sense, so he decided on invading Maryland. Lee believed that Southern sentiment in the state may send new recruits to his ranks. Furthermore, the temporary lull in hostilities in Northern Virginia would allow the citizenry to take care of their crops without the interference of marching armies. With the decision made, Lee and his lieutenants set off on the Maryland campaign. Although under arrest, Hood still rode with his division, albeit at the rear of the column, and he had no authority over them. In Maryland, Lee divided his force, sending Jackson to capture the Union garrison at Harper's Ferry, while Longstreet guarded the gaps at South Mountain. When the Union forces moved quicker than Lee anticipated, troops rushed to the gap to stall the approaching enemy. As Hood's division marched past Lee, They demanded that he give them Hood. Lee declared that they will have him and asked Hood to meet with the army commander. Lee said to Hood, "General, here I am, just on the eve of entering into battle with one of my best officers under arrest. If you will merely say that you regret this occurrence, I will release you and restore you to the command of your division." Hood insisted that he couldn't do it. Those wagons belonged to his men, who had rightfully captured them. If the wagons were to be distributed throughout the army, he would cheerfully obey, but they did not belong to Evans. They belonged to Hood's division. Lee was disappointed that he remained stubborn, but nonetheless allowed him to return to the command of his division with a suspended arrest until after the next battle concluded. Hood immediately rode off to the front of his columns. Hood performed good service defending South Mountain and then withdrew to the town of Sharpsburg, Maryland. On September 17, 1862, along the banks of Antietam Creek, the bloodiest single day of the war broke out, with Hood on the left of Lee's battle line near a cornfield. That field and surrounding area became the site of some of the most destructive combat, with Hood pushing his division into the cornfield and battling with the Union brigades and divisions thrown into the same landmark. Lead chopped down the cornstalks as well as the troops under Hood's command. The men ran low on ammunition, and casualties mounted. Hood asked for troops to reinforce his position. Regiments of Lafayette McLaws approached the cornfield to relieve Hood's beleaguered troops. As his men pulled away, Hood was scared to ride his horse over the ground because his men thickly covered it, and he didn't want to further injure the wounded. He brought what was left of his division toward the Dunkard Church, where they rested. The Battle of Antietam was a back-and-forth struggle, but in the end, Lee's army survived, yet bloodied. Lee is reported to have asked Hood, "Great God, General Hood, where is the splendid division you had this morning?" Hood responded, "They are lying on the field where you sent them, sir, but few have straggled. My division has been almost wiped out." The army remained on the field on September 18th, but that night, Lee began to move his army back across the Potomac River. The gallantry of Hood earned the acclaim from his superiors, including Jackson, who recommended his promotion. He wrote to the Confederate War Department, "I respectfully recommend that Brigadier General J.B. Hood be promoted to the rank of a Major General. He was under my command during the engagements along the Chickahominy, commencing on the 27th of June last, when he rendered distinguished service. Though not of my command in the recently hard-fought battle near Sharpsburg, Maryland, yet for a portion of the day I had occasion to give directions respecting his operations, and it gives me pleasure to say that his duties were discharged with such ability and zeal as to command my admiration. I regard him as one of the most promising officers of the army." Hood received the promotion to Major General that fall, and 2 more brigades were given to his division, 2 groups of Georgians, one under Henry Benning and another under George Anderson. Unfortunately for Hood, inspections found that Hood's brigades were in bad shape. They were poorly clothed and shod, but that wasn't Hood's fault. However, something he could control was their standardization of arms as well as the cleanliness of their camps. Lee had to write him a terse letter outlining the problems found. Later, Lee would describe Hood as such: "A good fighter, very industrious on the battlefield, careless off."